Maya Brooks thought she was walking into just another awkward blind date, but what she heard next would shatter her world and ignite a love story that would divide a family forever. As she approached the corner table at Sunny Spoon Bistro, 3 words whispered in desperation would either destroy any chance of love or prove that sometimes the most beautiful relationships are born from the most painful truths. Ethan Walsh had no idea his mother's relentless pressure would force him to say the one thing that could break an innocent woman's heart before they even met. But when Maya heard those devastating words, she didn't run. She stayed and demanded the truth that would change everything. What happens when a man must choose between the woman who gave him life and the woman who could give his life meaning? Subscribe and tell me what city you're watching from, because this story of forbidden love, family betrayal, and the courage to fight for what's right is about to unfold in ways that will leave you speechless. The afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of the Sunny Spoon Bistro, casting golden light across the worn wooden tables. Maya Brooks adjusted the strap of her purse and smoothed down her favorite blue dress as she walked toward the host stand. Her nursing shift had ended an hour ago, and she'd barely had time to change and drive across town for this blind date. She wasn't sure why she'd agreed to it. Tasha, her best friend since college, had been relentless about setting her up with someone from her boyfriend's work. "He's nice, Maya, really nice, and he asked specifically about you after seeing your picture." Maya had rolled her eyes at that. In her 26 years, she'd learned that when someone asked specifically about her picture, it usually meant one of 2 things. Either they were genuinely interested, or they had some weird idea about what dating a black woman would be like. She'd experienced enough of the latter to be cautious, but Tasha had worn her down, and Maya had finally said yes to coffee with this Ethan Walsh guy. "Home inspector," Tasha had said. "Quiet, thoughtful, owns his own small business. Lost his dad a few years back and is close with his family." Maya scanned the restaurant and spotted a man sitting alone at a corner table, scrolling through his phone with a slight frown. He had brown hair that looked like he'd run his fingers through it, and he wore a simple button-down shirt that was wrinkled just enough to suggest he'd been nervous about this too. That had to be Ethan. As Maya approached the host stand, she saw him glance up at the entrance, then back at his phone. His lips moved slightly, and she caught the tail end of what he was saying to himself. "Please let her be white." The words hit her like cold water. Maya's smile faltered, and she felt her shoulders tense. She stood there for a moment, processing what she'd just heard. Part of her wanted to turn around and walk right back out. Part of her wanted to march over to his table and ask him exactly what he meant by that. Instead, she took a deep breath and walked to the host stand. "Table for Brooks," she told the young woman behind the podium, keeping her voice steady. The hostess led her across the restaurant to Ethan's table. He looked up as they approached, and Maya watched his face change from distracted worry to something like relief, followed quickly by confusion as he seemed to register the coolness in her expression. "Maya?" he asked, standing up. He was taller than she'd expected, with kind eyes that looked genuinely puzzled by her reaction. "That's me." She slid into the chair across from him, setting her purse carefully beside her feet. Ethan settled back into his seat, and Maya could see him trying to read her mood. The server appeared almost immediately with 2 glasses of water and menus. "Can I start you folks off with anything to drink?" the server asked cheerfully. "Just water for now," Maya said without looking at the menu. "Same for me," Ethan added, his eyes still on Maya's face. When the server left, they sat in silence for a moment. Ethan picked up his water glass, then set it down without drinking. "Is everything okay?" he asked. "You seem... I don't know, did I do something wrong already?" Maya lifted her own water glass and took a small sip, using the time to decide how to handle this. She could pretend she hadn't heard anything. She could make an excuse and leave, or she could be direct and see what happened. She'd never been good at pretending. "Let's start with what you just said," she said quietly, setting down her glass and meeting his eyes. Ethan's brow furrowed. "What I said when?" "Right before I got to the table, when you were looking at your phone." Understanding dawned on his face, followed immediately by something that looked like horror. His cheeks flushed red, and he opened his mouth, then closed it again. "Oh, God," he said finally. "You heard that?" "I did." Ethan put his head in his hands for a moment, then looked back up at her. "I can explain. I mean, it's not what you think." Maya raised an eyebrow. "So you weren't hoping I'd be white?" "No, yes, I mean..." Ethan fumbled for his phone. "It wasn't me hoping that. It was my mother." He turned his phone screen toward her, showing a text conversation. Maya could see a long thread of messages, and the most recent ones made her stomach tighten. I hope she's a nice girl, honey. Someone who shares our values. You know what I mean. Someone who fits in with our family. These mixed relationships can be so complicated. I just want what's best for you. Maya read the messages, feeling a familiar mix of disappointment and anger. Not at Ethan exactly, but at the whole situation. At mothers who said things like, shares our values, when they meant something else entirely. She's been texting me all afternoon, Ethan said, his voice quiet. And I was sitting here reading these messages and getting more and more anxious about disappointing her. And when I saw someone coming toward the table, He shook his head. I said the thing she wanted me to think, but it's not what I want. Maya studied his face. She'd gotten good at reading people in her years as a nursing assistant. You learn to tell the difference between someone in real pain and someone just seeking attention. You learn to spot the family members who genuinely cared and the ones who were just going through the motions. Ethan looked genuinely ashamed, not embarrassed at being caught, but actually ashamed of what he'd said. Is that how you feel? Maya asked. Or what someone else wants? What someone else wants, he said immediately. My mother has very specific ideas about who I should date. She's been pushing them on me since my dad died. I think she's worried about losing more of the family she knows. Maya nodded slowly. She understood family pressure, though hers came from a different angle. Aunt Ruth was always warning her about men who wanted to date her for the wrong reasons, or who would fold the moment things got difficult. I'm sorry, Ethan said. I'm really sorry. That was terrible, and you didn't deserve to hear it, and I don't blame you if you want to leave right now. Maya appreciated that he wasn't making excuses or trying to minimize what had happened. She'd been on dates where men said questionable things, and then spent 20 minutes explaining why she'd misunderstood or overreacted. I've been on dates, she said carefully, where the person had a whole fantasy built up about what I was supposed to be like I was going to be some kind of experience for them instead of just a person. Ethan winced. That's awful. So, I need to know. If we keep sitting here, am I Maya the person, or am I the black woman your mother doesn't want you to date? Maya the person, he said without hesitation. Definitely Maya the person. They sat quietly for a moment. Maya could hear the conversations at other tables, the soft clink of silverware, the hiss of the espresso machine from the coffee bar inside the bistro. Tell me what respect looks like to you, Ethan said suddenly. The question surprised her. What do you mean? I mean, if we're going to try to have an actual conversation instead of both of us being weird and awkward, I want to know how to do this right. What makes you feel respected? Maya considered the question. It wasn't something most people asked directly. No performances, she said finally. I don't want you to try to prove you're not racist or that you understand my experience or any of that. I just want you to be honest. Okay. And I want to go slow. I want to see what you do, not just what you say. That makes sense. And consistent actions. Don't promise me things in the moment that you can't follow through on later. Ethan nodded. Can I ask for something too? Sure. Can we start over? Like, can we pretend the last 10 minutes didn't happen and just try to have coffee like normal people? Maya smiled for the first time since she'd sat down. It was a small smile, but real. We can try. They stood up at the same time, and Ethan pulled out his wallet. Let me get your water, he said. I can pay for my own water. I know you can, I just want to. Maya let him leave a few dollars on the table, and they walked together toward the coffee bar inside the bistro. The afternoon light was starting to change, and Maya could see dark clouds gathering outside the windows. Looks like rain, Ethan observed as they got in line. Good thing we're inside. They ordered their drinks, coffee for him, chai latte for her, and found a small table by the window. The first drops of rain were already hitting the glass. So, Ethan said, settling into his chair, tell me about being a nursing assistant. Do you like it? Most days, Maya said. It's hard work, but I like helping people. I like that every day is different. What's the hardest part? Families, usually. The patients are dealing with whatever's wrong, but the families are dealing with fear and helplessness. Sometimes they take it out on the staff. Ethan nodded. I imagine that's tough. What about you? How did you get into home inspection? My dad was a contractor, Ethan said. I grew up on job sites, learning how houses are supposed to work. When he got sick, I took over some of his smaller jobs. After he died, I realized I liked the detective work part of figuring out what was wrong with a place. Detective work? You'd be surprised how much detective work it is. People call you because something's not working right, but they don't always know what or why. You have to piece together the clues. Maya found herself relaxing as they talked. Ethan was easy to listen to, and he asked follow-up questions that showed he was actually paying attention to her answers. Not everyone did that. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said after a while. "Of course. What did you tell your mother about today?" Ethan looked out the window at the rain, which was coming down harder now. "I told her I was meeting someone for coffee. She asked a lot of questions about who and where and whether you were suitable." He made air quotes around the word. "And what did you say?" "I told her she'd have to trust me to make good decisions." "How did that go over?" "Not well." Ethan smiled ruefully. "She's not used to me pushing back." Thunder rumbled outside, and the lights in the bistro flickered briefly. Maya's phone buzzed with a notification, and she glanced at it. "Everything okay?" Ethan asked. "My car's been having battery issues," Maya said, frowning at the low battery warning on her screen. "I was hoping it would hold out until I could get it looked at tomorrow." The rain was really coming down now, drumming against the windows and turning the street outside into a blur of headlights and reflections. A busser stopped by their table to wipe it down. "Looks like you folks picked a good day to be inside," he said cheerfully. "Weather guy says this is supposed to keep up for a while." Maya and Ethan looked at each other across the table. "I have jumper cables in my truck," Ethan offered, "and my neighbor has a battery charger if yours is really dead." "I don't want to be a bother." "You're not a bother. Besides, what kind of first date would this be if I let you get stranded in the rain?" Maya considered it. She could call Tasha or Aunt Ruth, but they were both across town. She could call a ride share, but that would mean leaving her car here overnight. "Your neighbor won't mind. Mr. Halpern loves helping people. He's probably watching the rain right now, hoping someone needs to borrow something." Maya made her decision. "Okay, but if this is some elaborate scheme to get me to your place, I'm going to be very annoyed." Ethan laughed. "It's not a scheme. Mr. Halpern is 70 years old and has been married to the same woman for 45 years. Well, he was married. She passed last year. I'm sorry. He's doing okay. Better since he started helping everyone in the neighborhood with their projects." They finished their drinks and gathered their things. At the door, they stood looking out at the downpour. "Ready?" Ethan asked. Maya nodded and they pushed out into the rain. The water was shockingly cold, and within seconds Maya could feel it soaking through her dress. They ran toward her car, which was parked about half a block away, laughing despite themselves at the absurdity of it all. "This is definitely not how I pictured this afternoon going," Maya called out over the sound of the rain. "Good different or bad different?" Ethan called back. "Ask me when we're dry." Maya's car made a weak clicking sound when she turned the key, then nothing. "Definitely the battery," Ethan said, rain dripping from his hair. "Mr. Halpern's place is just around the corner. We can push it there if you want." "In this rain?" "It's not that far, and we're already soaked." Maya looked at her reflection in the car window. Her hair was plastered to her head, and her dress was clinging to her in ways that were probably not flattering. Ethan didn't look much better, his shirt transparent and his hair dripping. "This is insane," she said. "Completely insane," he agreed. "Want to do it anyway?" Despite everything, the awkward beginning, the rain, the dead battery, Maya found herself grinning. "Let's do it." They put the car in neutral and pushed it through the rain, Ethan steering while Maya pushed from behind. It was ridiculous and uncomfortable, and exactly the kind of thing that would make a great story later. 2 blocks felt like 2 miles in the downpour, but finally they reached a small house with a tidy front yard and a garage with its door already rolling open. An elderly man stood in the doorway, waving them forward. Come on," he called. "Get that car in here before you both catch pneumonia." They pushed the car into the garage, and Mr. Halpern immediately began bustling around, pulling out towels and plugging in a battery charger. "You must be the young man from down the street," he said to Ethan, then turned to Maya. "And you're getting the full neighborhood welcome, I see." "Mr. Halpern, this is Maya," Ethan said, accepting a towel. "Maya, this is the best neighbor anyone could ask for." "Oh, nonsense," Mr. Halpern said, but he looked pleased. "Now let's get this battery charging and get you two some hot tea before you freeze to death." As the old man fussed over the car battery, Maya caught Ethan's eye. He was still dripping, still looked like he'd been through a rainstorm, but he was smiling. "Still good different?" he asked quietly. Maya considered the question. A few hours ago, she'd been prepared for a normal, potentially boring coffee date. Instead, she'd confronted casual racism, had an unexpectedly honest conversation, and was now standing in a stranger's garage, soaked to the skin. "Ask me tomorrow," she said, but she was smiling too. The battery charger hummed to life, and outside the rain continued to fall. The tea was exactly what Maya needed. Mr. Halpern had insisted they come inside while the battery charged, and his kitchen was warm and filled with the kind of comfortable clutter that spoke of a life well lived. Photos covered the refrigerator, and a needlepoint sampler on the wall read, "Home is where the heart is," in careful blue stitches. "My Eleanor made that," Mr. Halpern said, noticing Maya's gaze. 43 years ago, right after we moved in here. It's beautiful," Maya said, cradling her mug of chamomile tea. She had patience for that kind of work. I never did. Mr. Halpern settled into his chair at the small kitchen table. "Now, how did you two meet? Besides nearly drowning in my garage, I mean." Maya and Ethan exchanged glances. "Blind date," Ethan said. Sort of. My friend set us up," Maya explained. "We were having coffee when the rain started. And your car decided to give up the ghost at just the right moment," Mr. Halpern said with a knowing smile. "Funny how these things work out." Maya wasn't sure it had worked out yet, but she appreciated the old man's optimism. Through the kitchen window, she could see the rain had eased to a steady drizzle. "I should check the battery," Ethan said, standing up. "Give it a few more minutes," Mr. Halpern said. "These old chargers work better if you don't rush them." "Like most things worth doing." Maya caught the look that passed between Ethan and his neighbor. There was clearly history there, some understanding between them that went beyond just living on the same street. "Mr. Halpern helped me a lot after my dad died," Ethan said quietly, as if reading her thoughts, "when I didn't know how to fix things around the house." "Your father was a good man," Mr. Halpern said to Ethan. "You have his hands for building things. But you also have your mother's worry." He turned to Maya. "This young man thinks too much about what everyone else wants." Maya felt Ethan shift uncomfortably beside her. "Eleanor used to tell me," Mr. Halpern continued, "that the secret to a happy marriage was not making yourself into what you thought the other person wanted. The secret was being yourself and finding someone who loved that person." "Sounds like Eleanor was smart," Maya said. "Smartest woman I ever met. Too smart for me, probably, but she kept me around anyway." Mr. Halpern's eyes crinkled at the corners. "She would have liked you, dear. She always said she could tell good people by how they treated strangers." A comfortable silence settled over the kitchen. Maya found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't expected. There was something about Mr. Halpern's presence that made the whole afternoon feel less complicated. "Let me check that battery now," Ethan said finally. They followed him back into the garage, where the car's dashboard lights flickered weakly to life when Maya turned the key. "That should get you home," Mr. Halpern said with satisfaction. "But you'll want to get a new battery soon. This one's on its last legs." "Thank you so much," Maya said. "I don't know what we would have done without you." "Probably stood in the rain arguing about whose fault it was," Mr. Halpern said with a grin. "I've seen it happen before." They said their goodbyes and stepped out into the damp evening air. The rain had stopped completely, leaving behind the fresh, clean smell that always followed a storm. "Well," Ethan said as they reached Maya's car, "that was unexpected." "Which part? The dead battery or ending up in your neighbor's kitchen drinking tea?" "All of it." Ethan paused, then looked at her directly. "I had a good time, Maya, despite the rough start." Maya considered this. The afternoon had been strange and awkward, and nothing like what she'd planned. But there had been moments when Ethan showed her the texts from his mother, when they pushed the car through the rain laughing, when they sat in Mr. Halpern's kitchen, where she'd glimpsed something real. "I want to be clear about something," she said. "Okay, I'm not interested in being someone's learning experience. I'm not here to teach you how to deal with your mother, or help you figure out how you feel about dating black women." Ethan nodded. "I understand. And I'm not going to pretend that what happened at the restaurant didn't happen. It did, and it hurt, even if you didn't mean it the way it sounded. I know. I'm sorry." Maya studied his face in the dim light from the street lamp. "If you want to see me again, it can't be about proving something to anyone else. It has to be because you actually want to get to know me." "I do want to get to know you," Ethan said simply. "Then maybe we can try again. Something low-key, a walk or something." "I'd like that." They exchanged phone numbers, and Maya got into her car. The engine turned over smoothly, the battery holding its charge for now. "Drive safe," Ethan said through the window. "You too." Maya pulled out of Mr. Halpern's driveway and headed home, her mind spinning with everything that had happened. She needed to talk to Aunt Ruth. The next morning was Sunday, and Maya found herself at Aunt Ruth's kitchen table by 9:15, nursing a cup of coffee and trying to explain the previous day's events. "So let me get this straight," Aunt Ruth said, sliding a plate of buttered toast across the table. "This boy said he hoped you'd be white, then showed you text messages from his mama, then pushed your car through the rain to some old man's house." "That's the basic summary, yes." And you're thinking about seeing him again? Maybe. Aunt Ruth sat down across from her, studying Maya's face with the sharp attention that had made her such a good high school principal for 30 years. What did you like about him? Maya had been asking herself the same question. He didn't try to explain away what he'd said. He didn't make excuses or tell me I was overreacting. He just apologized and asked what he could do better. And when Mr. Halpern was talking about his wife, Ethan really listened, like he cared about the old man's stories. That's something. But I keep thinking about those text messages from his mother. What if he can't actually stand up to her when it matters? Aunt Ruth buttered her own piece of toast thoughtfully. You remember what I told you when you started dating? Trust what people do, not what they promise. Exactly. This young man can say all the right things. But what's he going to do when his mama starts putting real pressure on him? Maya nodded. She'd seen it happen before. Nice guys who meant well, but folded the moment things got difficult with their families. On the other hand, Aunt Ruth continued, the fact that he showed you those text messages instead of hiding them says something. Most folks would have just kept their family drama to themselves. So what do you think I should do? I think you should trust your gut. If he asks to see you again and you want to say yes, then say yes. But keep your eyes open. Maya's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and felt a small flutter in her chest. Thank you for giving me a chance yesterday. I'll move at whatever pace feels right to you. Aunt Ruth, who had excellent timing and even better intuition, raised an eyebrow. That him? Yeah. What's he say? Maya read the message aloud. Well, Aunt Ruth said, that's better than most of the boys you've dated. Across town, Ethan was having his own difficult conversation. He'd gone to church with his mother and Claire, as he did most Sundays, but afterward, when Claire excused herself to help with the coffee hour cleanup, Linda had cornered him in the church parking lot. So, she said, adjusting her purse strap, how was your coffee date yesterday? It was good, Ethan said carefully. Good how? Did you two have things in common? Ethan looked out across the parking lot, where other families were saying their goodbyes and making plans for Sunday dinners, normal, uncomplicated conversations about normal, uncomplicated things. Mum, I need you to stop. Stop what? Stop asking me these questions like you're interviewing my dates. Stop sending me text messages about what kind of person I should be looking for. Just stop. Linda's mouth tightened. I'm your mother, Ethan. I want what's best for you. What's best for me is finding someone I care about and who cares about me. The rest doesn't matter. Of course the rest matters. Compatibility matters. Shared values matter. Having things in common matters. And who says Maya and I don't have those things? The name slipped out before Ethan could stop it. Linda latched onto it immediately. Maya? Is that her name? What kind of name is Maya? Ethan felt a familiar knot of frustration forming in his stomach. It's her name, Mom. That's all. You know what I mean. No, I don't think I do. What do you mean? Linda looked around the parking lot as if checking to see who might be listening. I just think you should be sensible about this. These kinds of relationships can be complicated. There can be cultural differences, family differences. It's not fair to either of you to pretend those things don't matter. What if I told you Maya was the kindest, smartest, most interesting person I've met in years? Would that matter? Of course it would matter, but what, Mom? Linda sighed. I just want you to think carefully about what you're getting into, that's all. Claire appeared at Ethan's elbow, as if summoned by his rising frustration. Ready to go? She asked brightly, then seemed to sense the tension. Everything okay? We're fine, Linda said quickly. We were just discussing Ethan's date yesterday, Linda said. Claire looked between her mother and brother. The one with Maya. How did it go? You told her? Linda asked Ethan. Claire asked me what I was doing yesterday. I told her I was meeting someone for coffee. I think it's great, Claire said firmly. Ethan hasn't been out with anyone in months. I just think he should be careful, Linda said. Claire's expression sharpened. Careful about what? Nothing, Ethan said quickly. We should probably head home. They drove back to Linda's house in tense silence. After lunch, Claire pulled Ethan aside while their mother was washing dishes. What was that about in the parking lot? She asked. Mom has opinions about who I should date. What kind of opinions? Ethan hesitated. Claire was 2 years younger than him, but she'd always been the more direct one. She had a way of cutting through nonsense that he envied. Maya is black, he said simply. Claire stared at him for a moment, then shook her head. And Mom has a problem with that. She says she's worried about compatibility. That's not what she's worried about. Claire glanced toward the kitchen, then back at Ethan. You know you're going to have to deal with this, right? You can't just hope it goes away. I know. Do you like her, Maya? Yeah, I do. Then tell Mum the truth now, not later. Don't let her keep making assumptions and building up her own version of what's happening. Ethan nodded, but his stomach churned at the thought of that conversation. Tuesday evening found Maya and Ethan walking along a quiet path in Riverside Park. The rain from Sunday had given way to clear skies and unseasonably warm weather, and the park was full of people walking dogs, jogging, and enjoying the evening air. They'd started with awkward small talk, work, the weather, safe topics that didn't require too much vulnerability, but gradually, as they fell into an easy rhythm walking side by side, the conversation became more natural. What kind of music do you like? Maya asked. Pretty much everything except heavy metal and country, Ethan said. You? I love R&B and jazz. Some hip-hop. My aunt got me into Motown when I was little, so I have a soft spot for that. Diana Ross? Diana Ross, the Supremes, the Temptations, all of it. Maya glanced at him. What about you? What did your parents listen to? My dad was all classic rock, Led Zeppelin, the Eagles, stuff like that. My mum likes, I don't know, easy listening? Michael Bublé? Maya laughed. Michael Bublé isn't terrible. No, but it's not exactly exciting either. They paused at a bench overlooking the small pond in the center of the park. A few ducks paddled around lazily, and somewhere nearby a child was giggling as they fed them breadcrumbs. Can I ask you something? Maya said. Sure. What happened to your dad? You mentioned he was sick. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Cancer. He was diagnosed when I was 28, and he died about 6 months later. It was fast, which was a blessing in some ways, but it didn't give us much time to figure out how to say goodbye. I'm sorry. Thanks. It's been 3 years now, but sometimes it still feels surreal, like I'll get home and expect to see his truck in the driveway. Maya nodded. She understood that feeling. Her own father had died when she was 15, a heart attack at 42 that no one had seen coming. What was he like, she asked. Stubborn, funny. He had opinions about everything and he wasn't shy about sharing them, but he was also the most generous person I knew. He'd give you the shirt off his back if you needed it. He sounds wonderful. He was. I think he would have liked you. Yeah, why? Ethan considered the question. Because you don't take any nonsense, but you're not mean about it. Dad always said the best people were the ones who could stand up for themselves without tearing other people down. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the ducks and listening to the sounds of the park around them. I should probably head home soon, Maya said finally. Early shift tomorrow. Of course. Ethan stood up. Can I walk you to your car? Sure. As they headed back toward the parking lot, Maya found herself thinking about the conversation with Aunt Ruth. So far, everything Ethan had done matched what he'd said he would do. He'd asked for a simple public meetup. He'd kept the conversation light but real. He hadn't pushed for anything more than she'd offered. Maya? Ethan said as they reached her car. Yeah? Would you maybe want to do something this weekend? Nothing fancy. There's a farmer's market on Saturday mornings that's supposed to be pretty good. Maya smiled. A farmer's market was about as low-key and public as it got. 1 hour, she said. We arrive separately and leave separately. Deal. As Maya drove home, she felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Cautious optimism. Maybe this could actually work. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made everything feel possible. Maya had chosen her outfit carefully. Jeans, a soft green sweater, and comfortable walking shoes. Nothing too fancy, but she wanted to look nice. The farmer's market was bustling with activity when she arrived at 9 o'clock. Vendors had set up colorful displays of produce, flowers, and homemade goods along the main street that ran through the center of town. The air smelled like fresh bread and cinnamon, and somewhere a bluegrass band was playing softly. Maya spotted Ethan near the flower stand, holding a small bouquet of bright orange dahlias. He saw her approaching and smiled, lifting the flowers slightly. These are for your aunt, he said. You mentioned she likes flowers, and the vendor said dahlias are good for fall arrangements. Maya felt her heart do a small flip. It was a thoughtful gesture, not grand or showy, but it showed he'd been listening during their conversation at the park. She'll love them, Maya said, accepting the bouquet. Thank you. They wandered through the market together, stopping to sample fresh peaches from a local orchard and admiring handmade pottery from a young artist who couldn't have been much older than Maya herself. The conversation flowed easily, touching on work, books, and the small observations that came with exploring a new place together. Maya? Maya Brooks? Maya turned to see a petite woman with dark hair and a warm smile approaching them. She looked familiar, but Maya couldn't quite place her. I'm Claire, the woman said, extending her hand. "Claire Walsh, Ethan's sister." "Oh," Maya said, glancing at Ethan, who looked slightly surprised but not unhappy. "It's nice to meet you." "I was just picking up some things for Sunday dinner," Claire said, holding up a bag of vegetables. "I didn't expect to run into you two here." "We're just exploring," Ethan said. Claire's eyes moved between them, taking in the flowers Maya held and the comfortable way they stood together. Maya could practically see her forming opinions. "Well, don't let me interrupt," Claire said. "But Maya, if you're ever interested, there's a great bookstore just around the corner from here. They have an amazing poetry section." "I love poetry," Maya said, genuinely pleased. "Thank you for the recommendation. Of course, it was really nice meeting you." After Claire left, Maya and Ethan continued their walk through the market. Maya was aware that they'd just been seen together by someone from Ethan's family, and she wondered what that would mean. "Was that awkward?" Ethan asked, as if reading her thoughts. "Should it have been?" "I don't know. Claire's great, but she has a tendency to report back to my mother about everything she sees, and that's a problem." Ethan stopped walking and turned to face her. "I want to be honest with you about something. I haven't told my mother we're seeing each other." Maya felt a familiar prickle of disappointment. "Why not?" "Because I wanted to see where this was going before I had to deal with her opinions about it. But that's probably not fair to you." "No, it's not." They stood there for a moment, the sounds of the market continuing around them. Maya could feel other shoppers moving past them, caught up in their own Saturday morning routines. "What do you want to do?" Ethan asked. "I want you to figure out what you want, independent of what your mother wants, because I'm not going to sneak around or pretend to be something I'm not to make things easier for your family." "I know. You're right. And I want you to think about whether you're ready to deal with the fact that some people are going to have opinions about us, because that's not going away." Ethan nodded. "Can I ask for a little time? Not to decide whether I want to keep seeing you, I already know that, but to handle things with my family the right way?" Maya studied his face. She could see the conflict there, the genuine struggle between wanting to do right by her and not knowing how to navigate his family dynamics. "Okay," she said finally, "but I need to know you're actually going to handle it, not just avoid it and hope it goes away." "I will, I promise." They finished their hour at the market and said goodbye in the parking lot. Maya drove home with the dahlias beside her on the passenger seat, feeling unsettled despite the pleasant morning. At home, she called Tasha. "So how was the farmer's market?" Tasha asked without preamble. "Good. Weird. I met his sister." "Ooh, that's big. What was she like?" "Nice, actually. But it made me realize he hasn't told his family about me." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "What do you mean he hasn't told them?" "I mean, his mother thinks he's just casually dating, not that he's specifically seeing me." "Maya," Tasha's voice carried a warning. I know what you're going to say." "Do you?" "Because what I'm going to say is that you deserve better than being someone's secret." Maya sank onto her couch, still holding the dahlias. "He says he needs time to handle things with his family the right way. And what do you think?" "I think I want to believe him, but I also think I need to be smart about this." "What does your gut tell you?" Maya considered the question. "That he's a good person who's genuinely conflicted, but also that being a good person isn't enough if he can't actually stand up for what he wants." "Exactly." After they hung up, Maya arranged the dahlias in a vase and set them on her kitchen table. They were beautiful, bright and cheerful, and they made her smile despite her concerns. Her phone buzzed with a text message. "Thank you for being patient with me. I know this isn't easy." Maya stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Just don't take too long to figure it out." Sunday afternoon found Ethan standing in Mr. Halpern's garage, helping the older man organize his tool collection. It wasn't really something that needed doing, but Ethan had gotten into the habit of stopping by on weekends, and Mr. Halpern seemed to enjoy the company. "You're quieter than usual today," Mr. Halpern observed, sorting screws into small containers. "Something on your mind?" "Family stuff," Ethan said, hanging a wrench on the pegboard. "Ah, the universal problem. Did you ever have trouble with Eleanor's family when you were dating?" Mr. Halpern paused in his sorting. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious. Her father thought I wasn't good enough for her," Mr. Halpern said after a moment. "I was just a mechanic, and she was going to college to be a teacher. He had bigger plans for her." "What did you do?" "I proved him wrong, not by changing who I was, but by showing him who I really was. It took time, but eventually he came around. And if he hadn't, then Eleanor would have had to choose. But I never asked her to choose between me and her family. I just made sure she knew I was worth choosing. Ethan nodded, understanding the implication. This about your young lady from the other night? Mr. Halpern asked. How did you... Son, I've been watching people fall in love for 70 years. I know the signs. Mr. Halpern set down his screws and looked at Ethan directly. What's the problem? My mother has very specific ideas about who I should be with. And your young lady doesn't fit those ideas. No, but she fits your ideas. Yes. Mr. Halpern nodded slowly. You know what Eleanor used to say about making your family happy? What? She said the only way to make everyone in your family happy was to be someone different for each of them. And if you did that long enough, pretty soon you wouldn't know who you really were anymore. A knock on the garage door interrupted their conversation. Mr. Halpern pressed the opener, and Maya's car pulled into the driveway. Maya, Ethan said, standing up quickly. What are you doing here? Maya got out of her car, carrying a canvas bag and looking slightly embarrassed. I brought Mr. Halpern some of my aunt's banana bread, as a thank you for helping us the other night. I wasn't expecting you to be here. The more the merrier, Mr. Halpern said cheerfully. Come in, come in. I was just telling Ethan about a bookshelf I need help assembling. Oh, Maya said, glancing between them. I don't want to interrupt anything. You're not interrupting, Ethan said. Actually, would you want to help? I could use someone good with instructions. Maya looked at the large box leaning against the garage wall, then at Ethan's hopeful expression. I suppose I could help for a little while, she said. The next hour passed quickly. The three of them worked together to assemble what turned out to be a surprisingly complex bookshelf for Mr. Halpern's living room. Maya proved to be excellent at deciphering the confusing instruction diagrams, while Ethan handled the actual construction and Mr. Halpern provided commentary and encouragement. There, Maya said, stepping back to admire their handiwork. That doesn't look like it's going to fall over. It's perfect, Mr. Halpern said, beaming. Let me get my camera. I want to remember this. He bustled into the house, leaving Maya and Ethan alone in the garage. This was nice, Maya said, brushing sawdust off her hands. Yeah, it was. Mr. Halpern is sweet. He reminds me of my aunt's neighbor growing up, always had a project that needed an extra pair of hands. Ethan smiled. He's been like a grandfather to me since my dad died. I think he gets lonely sometimes, but he'd never admit it. Mr. Halpern returned with an old-fashioned camera and insisted on taking several photos of Maya and Ethan standing beside the completed bookshelf. Maya felt self-conscious at first, but Mr. Halpern's enthusiasm was infectious, and soon she was laughing at his directions to look more triumphant. Perfect, he said finally, lowering the camera. I'll get these developed and give you copies. I should probably go, Maya said, glancing at her phone. I promised my aunt I'd help her with some grocery shopping. Of course, Ethan said. Thank you for helping with the bookshelf. It was fun. As Maya gathered her things and headed toward her car, Ethan followed her outside. Maya, he said as she reached for her car door. Yeah? I talked to Claire after we saw her yesterday. About us, I mean. About the fact that we're seeing each other. Maya paused, her hand on the door handle. How did that go? She said I need to tell my mother the truth sooner, rather than later. She's right. I know. I'm going to talk to her this week. Maya nodded. Good. And Maya, thank you for being patient with me while I figure this out. Just remember what I said yesterday. Don't take too long. As Maya drove away, Ethan stood in Mr. Halpern's driveway, watching her car disappear around the corner. He knew she was right. He knew Claire was right. The question was whether he was brave enough to actually do what needed to be done. Back in the garage, Mr. Halpern was sweeping up the last of the sawdust. She's a keeper, he said without looking up. Yeah, Ethan said. I think she is. So what are you going to do about it? Ethan thought about Maya's words, about Claire's advice, about everything Mr. Halpern had said about Eleanor and making choices. I'm going to stop being afraid of disappointing my mother, he said finally. Mr. Halpern nodded approvingly. Good. Fear's a terrible reason to lose someone you care about. That evening, Maya sat at Aunt Ruth's kitchen table, showing her the photos Mr. Halpern had insisted she take with her. You look happy, Aunt Ruth observed, studying the pictures. I was happy. It was a nice afternoon. But, Maya sighed, but I'm still waiting for him to have a real conversation with his family about us. And you're worried he won't. I'm worried he'll try, but when push comes to shove, he'll choose the path of least resistance. Aunt Ruth set down the photos and looked at Maya directly. What would you do if that happened? Walk away, Maya said without hesitation. I won't be someone's secret, and I won't spend my time trying to convince his family that I'm worthy of basic respect. Good. That's exactly what you should do. But I really hope it doesn't come to that. Aunt Ruth reached across the table and squeezed Maya's hand. "Then let's hope this young man is braver than you think he is." Maya squeezed back, holding on to that hope and trying not to think about how many times hope had let her down before. Tuesday evening, Maya was just finishing her shift at the hospital when her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Would you like to have dinner this weekend? I could cook or we could go somewhere nice, your choice." Maya stared at the message as she walked to her car. Dinner felt like a step up from coffee and farmers markets. More intentional, more like a real date. She was still deciding how to respond when her phone rang. Tasha's name flashed on the screen. "Hey girl, what's up?" Maya answered. "I just heard something at work that I think you should know about," Tasha said, her voice tight with anger. Maya's stomach dropped. "What kind of something?" "Jessica from accounting was at that bistro downtown on Saturday with her mom, and she overheard some women talking about you and Ethan. Apparently they were at your first date, and they've been spreading the story around." "What story?" "That Ethan said he hoped his date would be white, and then you showed up and he had to pretend to be okay with it." Maya leaned against her car, feeling sick. "That's not what happened. I know it's not what happened, but that's what people are saying happened. And now it's all over social media." "Social media?" "One of them posted about it on Facebook. Witnessed the most awkward date ever kind of thing. It's getting shared around." Maya closed her eyes. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of. Becoming the subject of other people's entertainment, their story twisted into something unrecognizable. "Have you talked to Ethan?" Tasha asked. "Not about this. He just texted asking me to dinner this weekend." "Girl, you need to call him. He needs to know what people are saying." After they hung up, Maya sat in her car for a long time staring at Ethan's text message. Finally, she typed back, "We need to talk. Can you call me?" Her phone rang within 5 minutes. "Maya, what's wrong?" Ethan's voice was full of concern. "Have you heard anything about people talking about our first date?" There was a pause. "What do you mean?" Maya told him what Tasha had heard, about the social media posts, about the way their story was being twisted and spread around town. "Oh God," Ethan said when she finished. "Maya, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault that people are gossiping, but I need to know, are you prepared for this? Because this is what dating me is going to be like sometimes. People are going to have opinions, and some of them are going to be ugly. I don't care what people say. It's easy to say that when it's theoretical. It's harder when you have to actually live with it." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to think about whether this is really what you want, and I want you to have that conversation with your mother before this gets back to her from someone else." "You're right. I'll talk to her this week." "Ethan?" "Yeah? If you decide this is too complicated, I'll understand, but I need you to be honest about it." "Maya, I'm not going anywhere. I promise." Maya wanted to believe him, but she'd heard promises before. Wednesday morning, Linda Walsh was having coffee with her neighbor Carol when her phone chimed with a Facebook notification. She glanced at it absently, then did a double take when she saw her son's name in a shared post. "Most awkward blind date ever witnessed at Sunny Spoon yesterday. Poor guy clearly hoped his date would be different. So uncomfortable to watch." Awkward blind dates gone, wrong. Linda's heart began to race as she read through the comments, piecing together the story. Her son Ethan out with a black woman. People talking about them, laughing about them. "Everything all right, dear?" Carol asked, noticing Linda's expression. "Fine," Linda managed. "Just family drama." But it wasn't fine. By the time Linda got home, she'd seen the post shared 4 more times, each with increasingly detailed commentary about what the witnesses had observed. Her phone was buzzing with text messages from church friends asking if she'd seen it, if it was really Ethan. She called Claire first. "Did you know about this?" Linda demanded as soon as Claire answered. "Know about what?" "Your brother is dating a black girl, and it's all over Facebook." Claire sighed. "Mom, you did know. How long has this been going on?" "I met her briefly at the farmer's market. She seemed very nice." "Very nice? Claire, do you understand what this looks like? Everyone is talking about our family. Maybe you should talk to Ethan instead of me." "I intend to." But when Linda called Ethan, it went straight to voicemail. He was probably at work crawling around someone's basement looking for foundation problems, but Linda's imagination filled in other possibilities. Maybe he was with her. Maybe he was deliberately avoiding his family. She tried again an hour later. Still voicemail. By evening, Linda had worked herself into a state of anxious frustration. When Ethan finally called her back at 7:30, she was ready. "I saw the Facebook post," she said without preamble. "What Facebook post?" "Don't play dumb with me, Ethan. Everyone in town is talking about your date at the bistro." There was a long pause. Mom, I was going to talk to you about this. When? After it became a public spectacle. It's not a public spectacle, it's just gossip. Just gossip? Ethan, do you understand how this reflects on our family? People are saying you didn't want to date a black girl but felt obligated to go through with it anyway. That's not what happened. Then what did happen? Ethan took a deep breath. I was nervous about the date because of all the things you'd been texting me about what kind of person I should look for. When I saw Maya coming toward the table, I muttered something stupid that she overheard. We talked about it, I apologized, and we decided to get to know each other. And you've been seeing her since then? Yes. Without telling me. I wanted to figure out how I felt before I had to deal with your opinions about it. Linda felt a surge of hurt. My opinions? Ethan, I'm your mother. I want what's best for you. I know you do. But what's best for me is finding someone who makes me happy. Maya makes me happy. You barely know her. I know enough to want to know more. Linda gripped the phone tighter. What about compatibility? What about shared values? What about the fact that you'll face challenges that other couples don't have to face? What about the fact that she's kind and smart and funny and I enjoy spending time with her? That's not enough, Ethan. You can't build a relationship on just enjoying someone's company. Why not? Isn't that how you and Dad started? The question caught Linda off guard. She and Robert had met at a church social, two young people from similar backgrounds who shared similar values. It had been simple, uncomplicated, safe. That's different, she said finally. How? Linda struggled to find words that didn't sound as prejudiced as she feared they might be. It's just more complicated when people come from different backgrounds. Different how? Ethan, please. You know what I mean. No, Mom, I don't think I do. Tell me exactly what you mean. Linda felt cornered. She'd raised her children to be good people, to treat everyone with respect and kindness. But she'd also raised them in a world that was largely white, largely middle class, largely predictable. The idea of Ethan choosing a life that was more complex, more visible, more subject to judgment, terrified her. I just want you to think carefully about what you're getting into, she said finally. I am thinking carefully. And what I'm getting into is getting to know someone wonderful. And what if this wonderful person decides you're not worth the trouble of dealing with your family? The words slipped out before Linda could stop them. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Mom, Ethan said finally, his voice very quiet, are you threatening to make things difficult for Maya? I'm not threatening anything. I'm just being realistic about the challenges you'll face. The challenges we'll face will come from people who think like you do. Ethan, I have to go, Mom, but we're going to finish this conversation, and you're going to need to decide what's more important to you, having a relationship with me or having control over who I date. The line went dead. Linda sat staring at her phone, her hands shaking. She'd handled that all wrong, but she didn't know how to fix it. She didn't even know if she wanted to fix it, or if she wanted Ethan to come to his senses and end this before it went any further. She called Claire again. I talked to Ethan, Linda said when Claire answered. I figured you would. How did it go? Terribly. He's angry with me, and I don't know how to make this right. Claire was quiet for a moment. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. What exactly is it about Maya that worries you? And I want you to really think about your answer. Linda considered the question. I worry that they'll face judgment and discrimination that will put strain on their relationship. From who? From people. Society. Mom, the biggest source of judgment they're likely to face is from us, from our family. The truth of that statement hit Linda like a physical blow. I'm not prejudiced, Linda said weakly. I didn't say you were prejudiced, but you are afraid, and you're letting that fear drive you to say things that are hurtful and unfair. I just want what's best for him. Then maybe you should meet her before you decide what's best for him. After Claire hung up, Linda sat alone in her kitchen, thinking about her late husband. Robert had been a good man, kind and fair and decent. He'd taught their children to judge people by their character, not by superficial differences. What would he think about the things she'd said to Ethan tonight? She was afraid she already knew the answer. Thursday evening, Maya arrived at Aunt Ruth's house for dinner to find Linda Walsh sitting at the kitchen table, looking nervous and out of place. Maya, honey, Aunt Ruth said, appearing in the doorway with her apron on. We have a guest for dinner. Maya looked between her aunt and Linda, trying to process what was happening. Mrs. Walsh asked if she could come by and meet you properly, Aunt Ruth continued. I thought it might be a good idea. Maya set down her purse slowly. Where's Ethan? He doesn't know I'm here, Linda said. I asked your aunt if I could speak with you privately first. Maya looked at Aunt Ruth, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Trust the process, her expression seemed to say. All right, Maya said, taking a seat across from Linda. What did you want to say? Linda clasped her hands together on the table. She looked older than Maya had expected, and tired in a way that suggested she hadn't been sleeping well. I wanted to apologize, Linda began, for the things I said to Ethan about your relationship, for making assumptions about you without even meeting you, for, she paused, searching for words, for letting my fear make me say things that were wrong. Maya studied the older woman's face, looking for signs of insincerity, but Linda's discomfort seemed genuine, and her voice shook slightly when she spoke. What are you afraid of? Maya asked. I'm afraid of losing my son. I'm afraid of him facing difficulties I can't protect him from. I'm afraid of change, I suppose. Linda met Maya's eyes. But mostly, I think I'm afraid of admitting that the world I raised my children in isn't the only world that matters. Aunt Ruth appeared with a pitcher of iced tea and 3 glasses, setting them down without comment, before disappearing back into the kitchen. Mrs. Walsh, Maya said carefully, I need you to understand something. I'm not asking Ethan to choose between me and his family, but I also won't tolerate being treated as less than because of who I am. I understand. Do you? Because it's not just about being polite to my face. It's about not making coded comments about compatibility and shared values, when what you really mean is that you wish I were white. Linda flinched, but she didn't look away. You're right, and I'm sorry. And it's about recognizing that any problems we might face won't be because we're wrong for each other. They'll be because some people have a problem with interracial relationships. I know that. I do know that intellectually, but emotionally, it's harder. Maya appreciated the honesty. What made you come here tonight? Claire pointed out some things I needed to hear, and I realized that if I lost Ethan because I couldn't accept someone who made him happy, I'd never forgive myself. Linda paused. But mostly I realized that I raised my son to be a good man, and good men deserve to make their own choices about who they love. Aunt Ruth returned from the kitchen carrying a tray of glasses and a plate of her famous cornbread. Maya, Aunt Ruth said, why don't you call Ethan and invite him to dinner? I made enough food for 4. Maya pulled out her phone, still processing everything that had just happened. Ethan answered on the second ring. Hey, his voice was warm but cautious. How was your day? Interesting, what are you doing right now? Just getting home from work. Why? Would you like to come to Aunt Ruth's for dinner? There's someone here who wants to see you. Someone? Your mother. There was a long pause. My mother is at your aunt's house? She is, and I think you should come. Maya, if she said anything, she said a lot of things. Some of them were good things. Come to dinner, Ethan. I'll be right there. 20 minutes later, Ethan knocked on Aunt Ruth's door carrying a bouquet of flowers and looking like he was preparing for battle. Maya answered the door. For your aunt, he said, handing her the flowers. How mad should I expect my mother to be? She's not mad. Nervous, maybe, but not mad. They walked into the kitchen together, where Linda and Aunt Ruth were setting the table and talking quietly about gardening. Linda looked up when Ethan entered, and Maya watched her face transform with relief and love. Hi, honey, Linda said softly. Hi, Mom. The dinner was surprisingly easy. Aunt Ruth had a gift for making people comfortable, and she guided the conversation through safe topics. Work, the weather, community events, while everyone got used to being in the same room together. But as they cleared the dishes, Linda asked if she could speak with both Maya and Ethan privately. I owe you both an apology, she said when they were seated in Aunt Ruth's living room. I let my fears and my prejudices, yes, my prejudices, drive me to say hurtful things. I made assumptions about your relationship without knowing anything about it, and I treated Maya as a problem to be solved instead of a person to be respected. Mum, Ethan started, let me finish. I've spent the last 2 days thinking about the kind of person I want to be, and the kind of mother I want to be. And what I realized is that if I raised you to be a good man, then I should trust your judgment about who deserves your heart. Linda turned to Maya. I'd like to get to know you, if you're willing to give me that chance. Not because I'm trying to decide whether you're good enough for my son, but because you're important to him, which makes you important to me. Maya felt something tight in her chest begin to loosen. I'd like that too. And I promise, no more coded comments about compatibility, no more suggestions that you'd face fewer challenges with someone else, no more making you feel like you have to prove your worth to this family. Thank you, Maya said simply. Ethan reached for Maya's hand, squeezing it gently. Thank you, Mom, both of you, for trying. That's all any of us can do, Linda said. Try and keep trying, and hope we get better at it as we go. Later, as they stood on Aunt Ruth's front porch saying their goodbyes, Linda hugged Maya for the first time. I hope you'll be patient with me, Linda said quietly. I'm going to make mistakes as I figure this out. We all make mistakes, Maya replied. What matters is what we do after we make them. As Linda drove away and Ethan walked Maya to her car, Maya felt something she hadn't dared to hope for, the possibility that this might actually work. That went better than I expected, Ethan said. Your mother loves you and she's braver than I thought she was. What do you mean? It takes courage to admit you're wrong and try to do better. A lot of people never get there. Ethan nodded. So where do we go from here? Maya smiled. How about that dinner you mentioned? Saturday night. Your place. Nothing fancy. Are you sure? I'm sure. As Maya drove home, she thought about the conversation with Linda, about the vulnerability it had taken for the older woman to come to Aunt Ruth's house and admit her mistakes. It wasn't everything. There would be more conversations, more adjustments, more moments when they all had to choose kindness over comfort, but it was a start, and sometimes a start was all you needed. 8 Sundays later, Maya and Ethan hosted their first Sunday soup dinner. It had started as a simple idea, invite a few people over for a casual meal, but had grown into something more. Mr. Halpern arrived first, carrying a photo album of his late wife's garden that he wanted to show Aunt Ruth. Linda came with Claire, and she'd brought a salad and a bottle of wine, acting like she belonged there. Tasha and her boyfriend stopped by with cornbread, and even some of the neighbors from Ethan's street had wandered over when they smelled the cooking. Maya stood at the kitchen sink, washing dishes and watching through the window as the group gathered on the back porch. String lights twinkled overhead, and she could hear laughter mixing with the sound of conversation and clinking glasses. Ethan appeared beside her, picking up a dish towel. Good turnout, he said, bumping her shoulder gently. Better than I expected. Any regrets? Maya considered the question as she watched Linda showing Mr. Halpern photos on her phone while Aunt Ruth and Claire discussed the book they were both reading. No regrets, she said finally. This feels right. Even with my mother learning to navigate conversations about race. Especially with your mother learning to navigate conversations about race. She's trying, Ethan. Really trying. She is. They finished the dishes in comfortable silence, the kind of easy cooperation that had developed between them over the past 2 months. When the last plate was dried and put away, they stepped out onto the porch to rejoin their guests. There they are, Mr. Halpern called out, the hosts with the most. How was the soup, everyone? Maya asked, settling into the empty chair beside Aunt Ruth. Perfect, Linda said, and Maya could tell she meant it. I'll need the recipe. Family secret, Aunt Ruth said with a wink, but I might be willing to share it with the right person. As the evening wound down and guests began to say their goodbyes, Maya found herself standing on the front porch with Ethan, watching the last car disappear down the street. Thank you, Ethan said quietly. For what? For giving me the chance to earn this. For being patient while I figured out how to stand up for what I wanted. For believing this could work. Maya leaned against the porch railing, looking out at the harbor lights twinkling in the distance. Thank you for doing the work. For having the hard conversations, and setting the boundaries and showing up even when it was uncomfortable. So what happens now? Maya smiled. Now we keep showing up. We keep having the Sunday dinners and the conversations and the ordinary beautiful moments that make a life together. Slow and sure, Ethan said, echoing the words that had become their motto. Slow and sure, Maya agreed. They stood together in the gathering darkness, surrounded by the sounds of their neighborhood settling into evening. Tomorrow there would be work and responsibilities and all the small challenges that came with building something real together. But tonight there was just this, the warmth of the house behind them, the promise of many more Sunday evenings ahead, and the quiet certainty that they had chosen each other, and chosen well. In the distance, a church bell chimed the hour, and Maya thought about how the best love stories weren't the ones that happened quickly or easily. They were the ones that were built slowly, carefully, with patience and courage, and the willingness to keep showing up, even when the path wasn't clear. This was that kind of love story, and Maya couldn't wait to see where it would take them next.